In Kenya, at the Garissa University, the extremist group Al-Shabaab separates 147 Christian students from their Muslim classmates and kills them. In Israel, an ultra-Orthodox website calls for a ban on Christian holidays and the destruction of all churches in Israel. In Burma, 40 Buddhist monks and 450 extremist supporters attack a Muslim tea shop with knives and sticks. Did you know that still today, millions around the world suffer persecution because of their faith? The Pontifical Foundation Aid to the Church in Need, in the latest 2014 to 2016 edition of its Religious Freedom in the World report, seeks to highlight where religious persecution limits the rights of individuals to practice their faith. The report presents the situation of this fundamental human right in 196 countries worldwide, indicating the improvements or decline of religious freedom in each country. Sadly, in the period under review, religious liberty has declined in 11 of the 23 worst offending countries, with the majority of religious persecution linked to fundamentalist organizations. Generally, the decline in religious freedom follows three important steps: intolerance, discrimination, and finally persecution, each one built upon the other. This report focuses on countries where concerns for religious freedom go beyond intolerance, addressing more closely discrimination and religious persecution. Persecution is divided into that caused by state actors like North Korea, Eritrea, Saudi Arabia, China, Pakistan, and Turkmenistan, and that caused by non-state, such as fundamentalist or militant organizations like ISIS operating in Syria and Iraq, and Boko Haram in northern Nigeria and Cameroon. In the case of state actors, in the worst offending countries, which include North Korea, Saudi Arabia, and Eritrea, the penalty for religious expression is the complete denial of rights and liberties, including long-term incarceration without fair trial, rape, and murder. Similarly, a renewed crackdown on religious groups that refuse to follow the party line continues in authoritarian regimes such as Turkmenistan and China. In Turkmenistan, authorities issued a proposal for building regulations stating the color, size, and location of crosses on places of worship and church-owned buildings. In China, more than 2,000 churches had their crosses demolished in Zhejiang and nearby provinces. In countries like Pakistan and India, religion is identified with the nation-state. Here, the rights of state-supported faith increasingly supersede the rights of believers in other faith groups, increasing obstacles for conversion and imposing greater sanctions for blasphemy. The research not only considers the declines in religious freedom, but also highlights countries which saw improvement compared to the previous report of 2014. On the positive findings, 3 countries, Bhutan, Egypt, and Qatar, stood out. In Qatar, although there is still much to improve, 8 registered Christian denominations are now allowed to publicly worship in a government-provided area. In Egypt, the government amended the 2013 Constitution, removing a previous article which had obliged a stricter application of Sharia law against minority faith groups. The frequency and intensity of atrocities perpetrated by extremist Islamists against Yazidis, Christians, Baha'is, Jews, and Ahmadiyya Muslims is on the rise, with recorded attacks in 39 countries, fully 20% of the 196 countries reviewed. ISIS attacks on religious minorities are widely considered genocide. One example comes from Iraq, where a 16-year-old Yazidi girl, Ekas, described how militants killed her father and brother for their faith. She watched helplessly as Yazidi women were repeatedly raped in front of her. These atrocities are not limited to the Middle East, but are increasingly spreading across Asia and into Europe. In France, 2 jihadists killed 4 people and critically injured another 4 in a kosher supermarket in an anti-Semitic attack. In Scotland, a Muslim extremist killed an Ahmadiyya Muslim shopkeeper, Asad Shah, for wishing Good Friday and a very happy Easter, especially to my beloved Christian nation. In parts of the Middle East, including Syria and Iraq, violent radicalization or hyper-extremism, represented by such groups as ISIS and al-Nusra, is eliminating all forms of religious diversity and is also threatening parts of Africa and the Asian subcontinent. The intent is to replace pluralism with a fundamentalist monoculture, eliminating all space for religious diversity. This Islamist extremism and hyper-extremism, observed in countries like Afghanistan, Somalia, Iraq, Eritrea, Syria, as well as North Africa, has been a key driver in the worldwide explosion of refugees, with 24 people displaced from their homes every minute of every day during 2015. According to United Nations figures for 2015, the number of refugees grew by 5.8 million to a new high of 65.3 million, the highest figure on record. The Religious Freedom Report also highlights positive developments in religious freedom. In Pakistan, Father Emmanuel Parvez, a Catholic priest, has organized interfaith football tournaments. In Morocco, a conference was organized where Muslim religious leaders from more than 120 countries urged the protection of non-Muslim minorities from persecution and publicly condemned Islamic extremism. And Pope Francis and the Grand Imam Ahmad al-Tayyib of Cairo's Al-Azhar Mosque met at the Vatican in a historic encounter to renew relations between the Catholic Church and Islam. The Holy Father embraced his guest and said, "The meeting is the message." Learn more about how persecution affects the lives of millions around the world by visiting our website, www.religion-freedom-report.org. Religious freedom is a right and a responsibility that involves each one of us.